Good morning. My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team doing our design shop talk today. Let me just check and make sure both platforms are up. I see YouTube. I don't see Facebook, but I don't understand what's wrong there because the thing says it should stream. So I don't know. Might only be YouTube today. All right, well, I've clicked all the buttons I know how to click. Oh, it's live now. It just took a minute, I guess. There we go. All right, so Facebook and YouTube are both up. Awesome. All right, again, my name's Samantha. We're doing our design shop talk. We try to hold them on a weekly basis to see what questions you might have. If you have questions while we're live, type them in on the chat. Don't send them to me privately. I won't see those. So just type them in. I've got a second monitor up, and if you see me looking off, that's what I'm looking at. Denise, thanks for joining, and whoever's there at Melco, thank you for being on to help. All right. So I'll go ahead and jump in on the questions that were sent in first, and I'll keep an eye on the chat in case any come in. All right. Greetings from Germany. I have a problem with an embroidery file. Basically, it's bulletproof. How can I improve the file or the embroidery result? Thanks for your... Okay, so basically, good morning, Lorena and Tina. Some of this is... So when you buy files, to some degree, unless you're purchasing from a shop that you know well, or that you know does quality work, you may get bulletproof designs, meaning they just stack and stack and stack and stack thread and stitching to where you have here, where it's not a good design. It's not done very well. So you're going to end up with issues. Personally, I throw them away and redo them. Mainly because bulletproof designs are annoying. So when you buy those sorts of things, let me go grab, oops, not that. I'm going to go close all of this, go open a file on my C drive. Designs. I'm just going to open an expanded file. Okay. So this is not a bulletproof design, but this is an expanded file to show you what I'm talking about. So when you buy things, you typically get them as expanded, which would be your DSTs, your EXPs. There's no wireframe information from it. So making corrections is not always a straightforward thing, right? Because you're going to have to do either convert it to wireframe and make edits that way, or you're going to do stitch editing, which is typically how I do it, quite frankly, to make any corrections. So I'm just going to make a mess to make some overlapping stuff here, just so we can kind of talk through how you do this. So for instance, this red pair here is under this one, right? So how would I go about fixing that to get rid of that overlapped area right there and the overlap on the green and those sorts of things? So like I said, it's not the most fun task, but this is how, when I have expanded and I don't want to do a wireframe conversion, I'll select the item. So like this leaf right here, I don't need that under the pair. So I'm going to go select that, turn on stitch editing, come over here and select a bunch of those points and hit delete. And if I didn't select enough, I can go delete more. I got to be careful because at some point the satin's going to stick out from under there, so that's not going to work. But I could do, oops, undo. But I could also do custom point selection like on these guys and move them, right? So what's another way? So this one right here, there are all those stitches under the pair. Again, I'm going to go custom point selection, kind of draw around, leaving a bit of a buffer, selecting those points and deleting them. Notice some of that didn't quite work out, I don't think. Yeah, so see, it deleted a lot more there. So I've got to be careful with what stitches I delete because of that. Okay, because some of them are actually going into this section. So like I can't delete that one. So I'm going to have, oops, I deleted them all. There we go. So maybe I'm going to only delete those, and it's still going to be too many. But anyway, so you're going to have to be careful with that and pay attention. But it deletes the overlap, right? Oh, that leaf was on top and under, not underneath. Oh well, we're going to pretend it was underneath. There you go. I have a garden running over there. If that fountain is annoying, Melco, you have to let me know. And I'll turn it off next time. Or you guys online, if it's annoying, just let me know and I'll turn it off. But that's what's going on there. So stitch point editing is not hard. I wouldn't call it fun personally, but it's a necessary evil at times. When you do a wireframe conversion, sometimes you'll lose some details, but you know, you kind of work with what you have. So the question, now that I went crazy, is when you have a bulletproof design, what do you do? Me, I just redo the whole design or go buy it from somewhere else that I know is a good one and chalk it up to don't buy from that person again. Or if I have to use that particular file, I'll go fix it by deleting any overlapped by using that expanded point editing. But quite frankly, most of the time I just throw the whole thing away and redo it myself. Let's see. So that would be my suggestion there. We have one typed in from Beverly. Can you talk about applique? How do I do the stops needed to add fabric, etc.? Okay, so you're asking about. All right, I did not read the whole question, so people online aren't going to know. Talk about applique. What am I looking at? I'm looking at a used. Goodness, can I talk today? I'm looking at a file I purchased from Etsy. How do I do the stops needed to add the fabric, etc.? So what you're talking about is machine operations, not necessarily digitizing the file, if I'm understanding you correctly. So on there, when you go to set up your color sequence, I don't have a machine attached to here, so I can't go into the OS and show you, so I have these screenshots. What you're going to do is, let's say it's going to draw down, it's going to stitch out the shape that you're going to cut out, right? So you stitch out the shape, and in this example, I have fabric laying down on the hoop. I stitch out that, and then I click on applique, and it adds that word there. Whenever the color change gets to the word applique, the machine will stop, the pantograph will come out from the machine, and it will sit there waiting for you to do something. So in this case, I'd grab my scissors, and I'd cut around it, and then I'd hit start, the green button on the keypad again. It'll pull back in, and it will finish the design. In this case, there's only one fabric done. So, but you would do that for as many as you need for the applique stops, right? So if I wanted it to stop it after every color, you know, I could do 1 applique, 2 applique by just clicking that button. It'll put the word applique in there. And that anytime it hits that word applique, the machine stops sewing, it pops out, and it will wait for you to go hit the green button again. Okay, wait for you to hit start. We did get you a link to some help files on the applique process, but so you can look at those in the chats as well. But Beverly, does that help at all? That's how you set up the machine right there. Now, if you're asking how do you digitize it, you'd get whatever art you want here first. All right, so I don't have art, so I'm just going to draw nonsense. So you got a few different ways. You can use the applique tool, make it really simple. And I can draw an ugly heart. A really ugly heart. There you go. All right. So I have a really ugly heart here. Oof. I really hate it. I'm not sure I can leave it up here. Let's delete that. Yikes. Sorry. Anyway, I got an ugly heart. Correct. If you're programming the machine, that's all done in the OS. So Beverly just has to follow the question. Now, if you're digitizing a file, like I said, you can draw out your shape. So I clicked on the applique tool. I drew whatever shape I wanted, hit enter, and now it's an applique. I can go into the properties, and I can tell it to do different things, right? So I can control where this line is by using this percentage. So let's say I want 60% on the 60%. No, not on the outside. Let's do 40% on the outside, 40% on the outside, and hit apply. Oops, 60% on the outside. I like that better. So that'll put stitching on here and off, right? So it skews the cover stitch, your satin stitch around there. Why does that matter? If you're trimming things by hand, you'll find sometimes you need more coverage or less coverage, so you can skew it one way or the other to your personal preferences. Okay, if I want to add a color change after the zigzag stitch, I can do that, and that'll make it a 3-color design. So now I can add an additional applique stop if I want to. On the tack down, if I want to change its properties, from changing the stitch type, the densities, any of that, the cover stitching, I can go fix the underlay if I want to add additional underlay. Let's say I want a center walk and then a zigzag for some reason. I can do that. I can add pull compensation, because anyone knows me, I like pull compensation on pretty much anything. So you have full control over what the applique thing is when you use this applique tool, right? So you can adjust all the properties however you see fit. Now you can also draw an applique by hand here. So again, I'm going to draw a box since my heart was abysmal. So I can draw a shape. That's a walk stitch. I can copy paste, give it a different color change, because that's going to allow me to put that applique stop in, right? So that's my placement, my tack down. Then I can copy paste, give it a different color, convert this over to a zigzag stitch by holding my control key and clicking on that, and then telling it to be a tackle. There it is. A tackle stitch, and maybe I want it a little wider. All right, so I have a placement, a tack down, my zigzag that holds the fabric down, and then I can copy and paste that one. Again, give it a different color if I want. Change the stitch type to satin and make that 40, right? So how do you practically do this on the machine, right? So you have your hoop. You're going to hoop your fabric, hoop your garment, and then I'm going to sew the stitch and have an applique stop. Then I'm physically going to go grab some fabric, right? And I'm going to lay fabric down over that. Okay, so I've just covered that up in the hoop. So now I've got a piece of fabric there. Then I'm going to sew this guy, and now my big old piece of fabric is sewn on. Have another applique stop, grab my scissors, cut this thing out close to there, which what does that leave me with? That leaves me with a piece of fabric sewn down with a stitch around the edge, right? So then I can sew this next step, which is my zigzag. If I have decoration on here, I can do that. And then I can sew the satin stitch around the edge. Okay, so programming, creating the applique stitches can be very simple. You can do it by hand, either way, depending on what tools you have, but it's a really simple process. So hopefully that helps, Beverly. All right, good morning, Sherry, thanks for joining. All right, did I miss any other questions? And Lorena and Tina, thanks for coming today. All right, let's see, what else do we have? All right, we did that one. Oh, this one. How do I layer text? Oh, where's my actual pretty PowerPoint? There it is. All right. How do I layer text and remove the bottom stitches where they overlap? Okay, so this one actually sent in a picture example. So let me go find it. Dropbox. Milko. Where's Milko? Milko. Okay. So this was the example sent in. All right. So basically, how do you do this knockout around the text? Okay. So let's go do it. I created a file. I'm going to open it, but I'm going to recreate it for you guys so you can see it. So I already created the, what is going on here? Yeah, I just have things stacked. There it is. Okay. There we go. So I already created it so you can see. So how did I do that? All right, so I just created text. So that's just basic text, and then I put this one as a different one on top of it. All right, so from here, I'm going to create that buffer around here. How I did that is I copied the text, pasted the text. So I have two stacked on top of each other. Do I want that? No. But I'm going to take this, I'm going to say operations, convert to vector. All right, so what did that just do? That made this a vector. So what can I do with that now? So I can take these three that are all connected and I can merge them into one. All right, and then I have the T. So from here, I can select both of these guys and do object, offset, outline, and let's say I want a 20-point buffer. All right, so if I turn this off, you'll see what that just did is it created that pad for me. Okay, so now that I have that pad, I can use it to subtract from this. So I'm just going to turn off the text for a moment. So for this one here, in order to subtract from it, I'm going to have to convert it to a wireframe. I can't leave it in lettering, right? So what you want to do first is make sure your lettering is all happy with all its properties, everything you want. You don't need to make any spelling error changes, things like that. Then I'm going to convert it to wireframe. So now I got these fills. So I can take that, select what I want to put a hole in first, hold my shift key down, and select the next item. Nope, control key. I lied. So select the M, control key, and then select that buffer. Now I can click on that right there, that subtract button, and it's subtracted. Again, I can take this guy, click control, select that. I'm going to right click on that. That's set to 0, which is good. So I subtract. Same with the P. Select the P, hold the control key, select the buffering shape that I want, and it subtracts all those holes out of it. The L, subtract or control, click on that, put a hole in it. This guy, control, select the T, put a hole in it. So what did I just get? I now have this. Okay, so I put a buffer around all of that. Okay, pretty straightforward to do. All right, any questions on that thus far? Okay, I'm doing a multi-hoop pattern. How do I set up registration marks in DesignShop? So I did a really detailed talk a while back. Let's see, what day was it on? How do I open the file location? Because that'll tell me the date the talk was on. Open file location. All right, so February of 2023. So the question asked was, I'm doing multi-hoop pattern. How do I set up the registration marks in DesignShop? Okay, so on this DesignShop talk, I had a pretty large example that I went through setting up registration marks, creating the design from scratch. I basically took this and said, all right, I want to create this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hoop design to make it monstrous. How big was this? This was 46 inches across. All right, so it's a massive banner. So check out that DesignShop talk and see if that helps. But pretty much setting up the registration marks, you just have to think about how you're going to hoop on the next one, and then you add a shape, right? My favorite thing is to add, I literally draw X marks like that, and I just use that and then set the stitch length to something larger so it's easier to pop out. If not, if you don't have that, you can always type an X. And again, I like to use the bean block one because it's just a really straightforward shape. And again, you can use that. So what do you do with that? Once you decide what points you're going to use to register your next design, you would put this, 1 or 2, depending on what alignment type you're using, in line, so that you do laser left, laser bullseye if you're going to center it, and things like that. But yeah, check out that session. I took a lot of time creating the example and talking about it and setting up all these different files. So it was rather detailed. Oh, why did I delete that? All right, so yeah, Medina, go check that out. See if that helps. If not, let me know, and I'm more than happy to go over it some more. All right, when using column 1, like a letter C, is it easier to start from the inside and work out, or start on the outside and work towards the inside, towards the tie inside? Okay. That one, I would just sew from one end to the other. It's a C. All right, if you're talking globally of a full design, what's the best way to do it? Typically, you want to work away from anchored things, meaning if you sewed something, you don't want to then, like I've got my hand sewn here. I don't want to then do another fill sewing towards my hand, because I'm going to be pushing that fabric and causing a ripple in the fabric here. All right, I would want to sew away. So you want to sew out away from anchored items, so things that are already done. On a hat, the anchored would be the brim. On a garment, the anchored part is going to be something that's already sewn. Okay, so you want to sew away from those. Now, for a letter C, I would literally, all right, I'm going to draw a C so that you guys don't have to watch me do really bad art by hand. All right, so if I were doing this as a column, so let's say you said a column 1. Wait, which one did you say? Column 1. All right. Column 1's my favorite. Not for a good reason, though. I think I've told the story of why I like this one the most. When I was learning how to, while I'm clicking around, while I was learning how to digitize, I didn't realize all of those buttons were flyouts. I thought those 8 tools right there were all I had. So I learned them and I became very proficient in those tools. And then I had a talk with one of the Melco people, and they're like, why didn't you use this? And I'm like, wait, what? So yeah, that was my childish. So I have a strong affinity to preferring a column 1, simply because I've used it a long time. Anyway, so not a good reason, but that's a reason nonetheless. All right, so how would I do this one? I would make it start on one end and go around the other way, right? If you're going to start in the middle, that would be the center walk, which is fine. But my satin stitch, you see, it's going to go from one end to the other. So typically you're going to have your underlay run first, so starting in the middle is fine. Or if you're going to digitize the underlay by hand, I probably would start it over here, something like this. I don't know. I would do that first and then sew around. Quite frankly, I'd start it back here if I were doing it by hand. But anyway, so you would do that first, and then you would do your satin stitch on top of it. Or you can just go ahead and program this. I would have it end over here. So it sews in one direction, and then it's done, ready for the next letter over here. Okay, does that help at all? Hopefully it does. All right, so those were all the questions I had. Let me see any that I missed typed in. Oh, there's one in Switzerland. Ooh, thanks. Thanks for joining. How do I create a circle with satin stitches that rotate 360 around the center so there's just not one stitch? Oh, okay. So there's just not one stitch direction. Got it. Okay, that's actually really straightforward to do. And let me know if this isn't what you want, and I'll show you again. So right here, if I do a single line center, so click on single line center and I do a circle. If I left click, hold the shift key and hit enter, now I have a satin stitch. And the stitch direction is actually changed. Let me make it wider so we can actually see it better. Come on, it's Lordy. Oh, helps if I turn on number lock, huh? Okay, so if you look at this, all my stitches are pointed towards the center. I'll turn it off 3D and you can see that. So you'll see these dashed lines along there. Those are actually the stitch directions all the way around, having it angled towards the center, right? So just doing it that way will create it. The other way is if I were just to use a single line and not use that tool, it would still spin the stitches around because I'm using the single lines center tool. So let's just stop it there, and I'm going to make it wide again and just move it, and you'll see it does the same thing. It twist the stitches around, keeping all the satin stitches aimed towards the center as a stitch direction. Does that help? But yeah, I would just use a single line center. Now, if you're using one of these other column tools, you have to pay more attention to it, right? So if I'm going to use a column 1, the stitch direction is the pair of points that I'm creating, right? So I would have to pay attention and make sure my pair of points are aimed towards the center. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'm going to mess up the last 2 just to force the stitches crooked so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so on this one, you'll notice all of these, the stitches are rotating and pointing towards the center, but over here, they're starting to twist crazy. And that's because my 2 points aren't aimed at the center. All right. Single line center is by far the easiest way to do it, but if you have a column with various widths, so let's say, oh, let's not go that wide. So the column widths are changing, you've got to use one of these others. So then you just have to pay attention that all your stitch directions are aiming towards the center of the element. How can I make a hole in the surface of a circle, not just the outline? Okay, let's do that. All right, so I'm going to make a complex fill. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste that, and then I'll just move it over. Okay. All right, so I've got two fills stacked on top of each other, right? So what I'm going to do is select the one I want to put a hole in, and there's another way to do this. I'll do it again in a second. That's probably a little simpler, quite frankly, but I like this. All right, so I've got my shape, hold my control key, click on that guy, and right here is the subtract, so I'm going to subtract it. All right, so if this is smaller, because maybe this is what you're looking to do. So if I take this whole thing and I make it smaller where it could actually be a satin stitch, and I tell it to be a satin stitch, and then let's center it. There we go. 3D. Yeah, it could be satin now. All right, so let's say I want all of my stitches pointing to the center. What do I have to do to fix this? So I click on my shape, click on right here, that insert stitch direction, and you'll see right here are my stitch directions. So I just have to go and add stitch directions going through the center. And now you'll see they're rotating around. They're all aimed at the center and the entire shape is there. Now clearly I have my hole offset to where, and the stitches are too large to be able to have the stitch directions correct, but I'm gonna do all that because it was perfect and then I messed it up. There we go. So if it were gonna be all satin, it'd have to be smaller, or I'd have to go into the properties and change this to something larger, which I don't recommend, but there you go. 80 is more than enough. Does that help? So I'll show you a different way you can draw that is if you just use the regular complex and then I draw my circle poorly. I hit enter to close it. Oh, I hit enter twice. That's not what I wanted to do. All right, so I'm going to do that. Trace my shape. Hit enter. You see the arrow with a little hole hanging off to the side? That's adding a hole. So again, I can draw the shape I want to remove. Hit enter. If I want more holes, let's say I want a second hole right here. Who knows why? There we go. I got multiple holes. When I'm done adding holes, I hit enter. And now I can add stitch directions. And again, I can just add. So that added one, and now I'm going to have to go insert another stitch direction and go that way. And you'll see they're all rotating around. And if I move this whole shape, you'll see I've got a hole in a hole. I can change it to satin. This is still too big, but you know, you get the idea. Okay, so I will butcher your name. Hopefully that helps in Switzerland for your question. Okay. If not, type it in and I'll try again. I'm working on a baseball. Is there a way to have a name lettering start big? Oh, excellent. I'm glad that helped. All right. Is there a way to, back to my baseball question. Is there a way to have name lettering start big and then go small and then get big? Yeah, there's a really cool tool that does that. All right, so, whatever. No, I want it all caps. It'll be more apparent all caps. All right, so I got some text here. Now what can I do to it? Down here under line type, I can do envelope. And then down here, there's some presets. So you're asking about this, right? Where I've got, it's inverted, it's getting smaller. And then if I need it even smaller, I can adjust it. So Patty, is that what you're looking for? Let me know. But like I said, it's really straightforward. Under properties, envelope. Down here, there's all kinds of fun little shapes that are preset in there. Now, what happens if you don't know what you don't have a preset, right? It's the shape you want isn't there. You want to do something custom. What do? I go to properties. I can still say envelope and hit apply. It'll put a line on the top and the bottom. Now that I have a line on the top and the bottom, I can add points to it and I can move them around and make my own shapes. Why I would want that as a shape, I don't know. But anyway, you get the idea. So you can play with this and it will put your things on an envelope. I will say I always try the envelope and then when I do my own and also perspective to see if there's one I like better. Almost always it's envelope, but every now and then I like perspectives look better. So I always try them both, make my shape, then switch between them and see which I prefer. But yeah, these envelopes are a lot of fun. They're easy to use. And the presets are fantastic, right? So it saves you the work of having to do that by hand. Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other? Nope. That's not none typed in. So it looks like I'm up to date there. Oh, so those were all the questions that I've got so far. What else? I'll hang on for just a few minutes in case someone's frantically typing and I don't want to cut you off mid-type. So let me know. Remember, I'll do this in case someone's typing. Don't forget, we have a form online now where you can submit questions ahead of time. I find it kind of handy. You don't have to wait till I post my little picture asking for questions. Midweek, maybe right after the session you forgot something that you meant to ask. You can type it in. That way you don't forget for next time and it'll be there. So you can go directly to that form. Where is it? If you go to melco-service.com, again, I know we'll probably get a link for this for you so you don't have to do it, but I always like to show people where to find resources. I go to melco-service.com, clicked on the FAQ, then I click on DesignShop. Right there's the DesignShop Talk button, and then right here is how you can submit questions. It'll take you directly to the form where you can, add a file, type whatever you want in there. So we did get you that link in the comments, so you don't have to do it, but that's where you've got it. Let's see. Next week is Thanksgiving on Thursday, so I'm going to be out of town, so I'm not doing one next week. Hope everyone has a fantastic holiday. I will be back the following week. I guess, I don't know. Do we want to do one on Wednesday? Because, no, I can't do it Wednesday because I'm volunteering. Never mind. So I was trying to see if I could do something Wednesday through Friday. I'm out next week. Anyhow, I hope these are helpful for you. Let us know what you want to learn about, and if you've got any questions, send them in. Next week, I'm going to be off for a holiday, but I'll be back the following week. So Have a fantastic weekend, and we will be back in 2 weeks on Thursday. Bye, everyone.